special call meeting of December the 8th to order. Call a roll, please.
Vogel?
Here.
Agee? Here. Terry?
Here.
Maynard?
Here.
Hall?
Here.
Shaw?
Present.
Dykstra?
Here.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Item number 1 on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action to determine the process for appointment of an interim city manager. I don't know that we need to name names, if we have some names or whatever, but what is your thinking? We'll just go down the road here. Michael?
I think it's a good idea to have a discussion tonight over city manager for interim. We need, the show must go on. We need business to continue. And are we going to speak about this in executive session?
I think probably if names or something, I mean, come up. I think
Right.
there's names. What about you, Lisa?
I agree, we need to discuss and consider possible interims or an interim.
Okay. Keith?
Yeah, we don't want to rush and have to rush in getting our future permanent city manager. So an interim will certainly allow us to keep on doing business and until we find a suitable candidates and do the interviews and hire somebody. I don't see how we can operate without an interim city manager.
Mr. Dice, Mayor?
I agree with Keith. Saying operate without one.
Commissioner Agee?
I agree.
Agree. Commissioner Vogel?
Concur.
Well, I don't know, we need a motion on this, Mayor. This is just a discussion, and so if that's anything else, anybody like to elaborate on this? We're here to just kind of work through this together. I'm new at this thing, just like most of us on here, other than James, I think. Okay, item number 2 is a discussion, consideration, possible action to determine the process for selection of a permanent city manager, including the formation of a search committee. I was approached by a couple of people in the community and said it might be a good idea to get some community people involved in a pre-selection process. If let's say we got in 100 resumes, and you get people from the community to narrow that down to then come before the commission, instead of all of us going through reams and reams of paper. And as I began to search out in the community, I put this paper in front of you, and that the following people, and I apologize, it's not a very fancy note, but I worked on it. But Mr. Joe Ford from Shawnee Milling, Mr. Chuck Skillings, who's over the St. Anthony Hospital Group, Randy Smith at OBU, and I'm not sure I know his capacity, but he's the CFO at OBU. And we needed a city employee, and someone brought up John Krywicki, and then I had down Keith and Linda and James, and we have a tribe representative here who has agreed to serve, and that's really about all that I have. And Commissioner Hall, your name is on there.
Yeah, can we talk about that a minute? I mean, I certainly would like to participate. I think it makes more sense to have you on there, Wes, instead of me, just from a time commitment perspective. I'm not semi-retired like you are. I have to work every day, so it may make more sense to have you on there as opposed to me. I certainly will do help however I can. What's ever needed, but from a active participating on the committee, if you're going to be meeting in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, it's going to be difficult for me to get away from work.
Okay.
One suggestion I'd like to make is that once the list has been narrowed down to ever how many, that we conduct more than one interview, so that say I drop out of the second interview and another commissioner sit in,
Sure.
and
Okay.
I drop out of the second
Okay.
interview, and another commissioner could drop in.
I think that's
So
great.
we'd have 2 or 3 meetings, that way we wouldn't ever have 4 members there, but you'd always have 3. So we could agree. We just hired a new CEO, officer president of savings and loan, and that's what we did there's 7 board members, and we sat in at different times and interviewed.
Well, the final interviews, if it's narrowed down to 3 or 5, I think it's got to be the commission.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean,
can we
that's-
talk a bit about what the committee's gonna do? I know
Sure.
they're gonna help, narrow the field.
Sure, you talk about
right?
anything you want.
But I also think it might be good to get some input from this committee. I kind of like, like I said, swap out my name, but I like everybody else on here. But get some input on what we really need in the way of qualifications, for a city manager. At least get their idea, some other folks in
Well, I
there.
had, Tammy and, what's Brian's secretary?
Carrie,
Gary.
Uh-huh.
I had her to look up the essential functions of the city manager and also a job description.
And I think,
Place before you-
and I think that's a good start. It may be just reviewing that material and tweaking it a little bit, right? But, I mean, what are we looking for in the city manager in the way of their management style, for example, right? And it's not necessarily something that's on a job description, but what's the management style that we think is appropriate for the city and our community? That type of thing. I saw where you had the qualifications on there from education and experience, but there's other factors that we want to consider as well.
Well, I'll be honest with you, with this committee, I'd love for each city commissioner and every one of you to take this job description and write on it, do whatever you want to help us develop those guidelines. I really don't see that committee getting active until,
Start getting resumes.
until January, early in January, because Brian is here till the end of the month. But, the holidays are here and everything, but it's gonna need every one of you, and I mean every one of you, to look at this and say, hey, if any questions, and this is not this committee doing all this, it's input from y'all all the time as this is going on, okay? What we're just trying really to do is get some people to feedback from the community.
If you recall, before, they had a town hall, I think, where the citizens came forward and spoke about what they'd like to see in the city manager. I'm not saying we necessarily need to do that, but I think that if we're going to have a committee composed of a subset of the commission and a small group of people, we definitely want the input of all the city commissioners.
Well, I agree. That's just
Throughout
not-
that process, yeah.
I just didn't think, for all these meetings and all that, it was fair to them. It'd be hard for us all to get there.
Right.
I guess the other thing is I'm not against a town hall meeting after we narrow it down,
I'd like to suggest maybe both of those be a consideration.
town hall meeting.
Town
Okay.
hall meeting, get a selection committee,
Town hall meeting.
rewrite the job description. I think there are certain parts of this particular job description that really needs to be what I'd call wordsmithed and fleshed out so that it can
That's great.
truly capture all the
But
duties.
that's your job and your job and your job and everybody on this commission to
Right.
kind of go to work on that pretty quick, okay? Yeah.
Also, Mayor, I'd like to see, well, perhaps we can get, since we only have one city employee on the committee, maybe that person, when we go further, like say, for example, through the second interview, perhaps they could switch out with a city clerk or city attorney, someone else that also has
Yeah,
a,
I don't have an issue expanding this committee, and I'm not so sure
Don't keep
that,
it.
that our human resources person shouldn't be on this
You
committee.
don't keep the numbers down, that's the only thing I
Yeah,
say.
I would caution against, you got seven people on there. If you make it too big, it just becomes hard.
Okay.
it might be the case. I was thinking
On the second
if they're gonna be
interview.
On
led
the
by this
interviews,
person.
on the
Sure.
second,
Well, we
it's probably gonna
definitely
be two
want our
rounds of
HR
interviews.
person there, we definitely want, if it's another,
But I agree, that's why I said,
If you have an HR person there, you can't really ask the real questions you want to ask, right?
Well,
they,
city clerk.
but that's why I suggested the commissioner, once that's narrowed down with this, let's do the other three commissioners or whatever else, anybody else set in on
Well,
the interview. Of course, the final interview will be between all of them. And I hope that we can do more than just one interview. I find out
Right.
at least three interviews and then a final interview. Of course, you're talking about money, you're talking about bringing people in here, but I still think it's worth it to get to know the people or the candidates.
Well, I like your idea of rotating city commissioners through on the selection and even the interview process when it gets
no problem.
to that point. keeping with just 2 or 3, to me, I want to have some input into this. And I don't know Keith travels all the time, so I understand about his schedule, and I used to travel all the time, but my wings have been clipped since I took this city commission position, and I want to be part of this because it's important.
Well,
We'll do it.
a couple of questions, I guess, and comments. And I agree with Lisa. Even if we're not on the committee, we're still going to be a part of it. We're still probably going to be able to look at the resumes and stuff as they come in and kind of, and you know.
There's no secrets from this
Yeah.
committee, in other words.
Right.
It should be just,
Well, you can't, but you have to protect the people that are applying.
I
So
understand.
you need to remember that. So if you get a application or if you see a resume and stuff, that's what do you
Confidential.
call it?
Right, confidential.
Information that you don't divulge or anything else, so that person may not be hired, and then they wind up that the people that they work for find out they're looking for a job, or they may be looking for a job. So that anything that you read on those resumes or see on those resumes, or any person that applies should be, private. Until it gets down to the final interviews, and you have to get permission from them, then if they want to be interviewed, in the final 3, 4, 5, whatever it happens to be.
Understood, but the other question I had was, what is the expectations around how many, we would narrow it down to how many people to come in for interviews? Is that 3 people? Is that 5 people? Is it, 2 people? What's the kind of the expectation, do you think around how many we would want to really, is it hard to say at this point? Do we kind of, where does the bar, kind of natural breaking point fall when we start looking at resumes? Is there 5 that we just can't decide from and bring all 5 in, or is it 2? Have you guys?
well, I think you'd do phone interviews with them before you brought them in, because that's a lot.
Don't you go with the past? How many people applied for the last time that we had this job?
Tammy, do you remember how many?
I wasn't involved with it at that time.
No, Kelly was.
I thought there was just one. That's the only reason we hired her.
About 7,
7 or 8, I think it was.
but I don't know how many applications. I probably have that information in my office, but I don't have that.
But you
I think
limited it down to
we've
7?
had-
I believe, I would have to look, I was just looking at some documents today to look for the information for commissioners as far as qualifications, and I saw a phone interview list. I was not involved with the hiring at that point in time, so I wasn't directly in.
I think there was about 7 or 8,
So there you go.
qualified candidates. And all the
And then
commissioners,
you go from,
all the commissioners got copies of the resumes and, all of this, so. It was, I forgot what it was, but, I think John Winteringer and I, Wayne, you remember, it was about 3 or 4 people that went through there, and everybody got to look at the resume, but there's 3 or 4, 3 people, I think, and Mayor Peterson,
well,
or Mayor,
and
with Mayor.
if you're
Peterson.
concerned about it may be obvious when you start looking at resumes, but what we do in my company sometimes is take the name off, to where you see the resume, but you don't actually see their name or the city where they're currently employed, something like
That's a good
that.
idea.
Just,
Population of the city.
Yeah, population of the city, and that way.
It's a great idea.
That way, that's until you get it narrowed down to the final 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it
Great
is,
idea. Let's all try to remember that. And that's a super idea.
Is that a possibility for you to do that, Tammy?
We could just make them a PDF, and then we could, there's a way you can.
Scrub 'em.
Redact.
Right.
We would just keep the original intact.
Yeah.
And redact the copies. I don't even forget to do that. That'd be quite a bit, because you're talking about any job that they have, you have to take out the city name,
Well, just their current employment, their current city.
just the current first job, and then
There's-
just get their address, you have to redact.
The current, their address and current city and their, their name.
That's no problem.
Unless they're from out of state, it doesn't matter.
Well, I would hope, and I guess the next item, as we're working through this, kind of ties into this, is that I would hope that maybe we could, and just a thought on my part, and after talking with a couple of people, is that there our city manager belongs to, and I may have this wrong, ICMA, then there's our OML, which all the city managers pretty much here in the state. And then there's CMAO, is that right? Is CMAO and ICMA both national?
CMAO is your state managers association.
Oh, okay, that's the State Managers Association, and ICMA is the national. So maybe we could run an ad in those publications. And if we get back some good applicants that would be worth looking at.
Well, my suggestion is still to hire, what this committee being involved with, but hire a headhunter to go
Search
out
firm?
Well,
and try to find.
Well, I just thought if you did this for like 30 days or 20, 30 days, and you got several in, you can exclude these people from the headhunter.
Well, now you want it, because the headhunter can get information that you can't get, or we can't question.
Whatever,
Yeah,
whatever y'all decide, it's fine.
But we might save some money by
Well-
doing it the other way, is what he's saying, I guess.
You might save some money, but you might not get as thorough
You won't-
of a search.
You won't get as good candidate
No,
population.
I think we
Right.
need a search firm.
The search firm too, I don't know how it is in city government, but in my industry, they'll actually keep that, a lot of that information, they're working with people that they can keep it confidential until they qualify and make sure that you're a good fit, and stuff like that. And then they, present that.
Save you
To
time.
where a lot of people won't respond, to just an ad because they're afraid of what James said about their information getting out. But if they're going through a search firm, they will respond, right? That's what I've seen in my industry. I assume it's similar in city
Yeah.
government as well.
Confidentiality of.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm hearing that we need to go down the road of a search firm. Am I hearing that from, I'm seeing a lot of heads, okay. Then I have a list here, and I'm sure it's not complete, of about 5 search firms, okay? And then I think that's gonna put a choice of us choosing one of those search firms. So I guess we either call these people,
We could do a request for qualifications, right? Yeah.
okay, a what?
The RFP process will allow you to pick a consultant.
Okay.
that-
Yep.
Okay, who would implement that here?
And then I think that's more appropriate.
Who would implement that?
That could probably be done by Tammy.
Tammy? Okay.
RFQ or an RFP?
He says
Or
RFP.
an RFP would
I
work,
don't know.
because we need some pricing, so RFP.
You need both, you need to know their qualifications and what they
So
charge.
RFQ is qualifications, I
You
guess,
just
and
ask for both.
RFP is pricing. huh?
Both.
Proposal?
Yeah.
So do we need an RFQ?
Just do a combined
Oh, okay.
request. Make a proposal and show us what your
Your
qualifications are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Tammy, would that be pretty easy to do, both the RFP, RFQ, and kind of do them?
I could email some, that's what I was just about to do, some of the people like, some of the HR directors in some of the other cities and see if they have one, and share alike around here. So I might be able to get one where we can just change our information, but I don't have one.
Okay. all
We can
right.
Google it.
We could call Port Arthur and ask them how they can organize.
Call Port Arthur.
Who'd you guys use, Well, I got this car dealer over here. He said,
That's a good idea.
it is a good idea. I mean, they took ours, and they owe it to us, right?
That's nice about having all this discussion.
We could probably get a lot better candidates if we say we're Oklahoma City too, just.
30 minutes.
Well, that kind of gets us through, let's just see here. So if I'm reading this right, is a professional consulting firm, y'all are
So
saying?
when do you think, how much time is it gonna take to get a RFQ, RFP, whatever it is, back? 2 weeks?
It's the holiday.
Well, through the holidays, well,
They probably just got it, they just hit it.
We're talking about
reply button,
January.
I'm sure.
I'd be shocked if these people, though, these headhunters don't
Yeah.
have that already
Yeah,
done.
they've already got it
You
down.
could probably get it back by the second meeting in January. right?
Or first.
I don't think you can get it
As
done
far as
first.
getting on the agenda,
Yeah, it's we could get them returned probably by the second week. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we can, ready for us.
let's shoot for the first meeting in January.
Let's shoot for the first meeting. I agree with Vice Mayor, and then if it doesn't, we understand, but let's shoot
you
and,
don't have to advertise.
Yeah, legally, we don't have to,
Advertise.
Professional services, right?
okay.
Well, and you just send
Tammy,
it
I have a
out,
list here if you don't have
you send it out to that list and any other people
it.
that.
And anybody else.
So we don't have to advertise it, okay.
It isn't for bids, request for bids, or?
Well, I'd hope we could get it, you know, I bet these guys have already got that thing put together.
Oh,
Fifth,
Yeah.
January 5th.
what?
January
Okay,
5th.
so I'm hearing we want to go with
Did you get one
a
of
a
those?
search
Yes, I
firm,
will.
and we're gonna have Tammy lead the way on that for
That's
us.
it right there.
Oh,
Did we set a time that we'd like for Tammy to bring back results?
First meeting in January,
Okay.
and we'll be understanding if it's not, but I'm just thinking all these people that are in that business get that all the time, and all they probably have to do is just
Reply.
punch a button. I would think that's their business,
They're worth their salt.
yeah. So,
Surprised you haven't had pictures of some of them already.
I had a couple emails.
okay, now this is a discussion tonight. I want to be sure that everybody, Commissioner Vogel, share any thoughts you have in this matter on anything before we consider going into executive session to discuss interim. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share, or
Not at this time.
not at this time? About Commissioner Agee,
No?
Vice Mayor?
I share mine.
You shared yours, okay. Commissioner Hall?
I assume it's on this topic. I don't have.
Commissioner Shaw?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Dykstra?
I think
So
it's been said.
Okay, I don't want anybody not having input on this thing, but this is a journey down a road that's gonna need lots of input and affects the future of 30,000 people. We gotta do it right. We have to do it right. Okay, item number 4 is discussion and consideration of possible action to enter into executive session for the purpose of interviewing or naming specific individuals to serve as interim city manager.
So maybe.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shaw. Okay, let's go into executive session. Oh, we got to vote. I guess that's right. All right. Hadn't voted it tonight on anything. Motion carries. Okay, let's go into executive session real quick and move on with this.
Somebody is gonna need, somebody's gonna need to take minutes. Did you bring them?
Mary Ann, you want to come?
I'll come if you want me to.
Sure. Gonna take a notice.
Think about that.
Yeah, come and
You want me to put one together? Would you like to go? Sure. You wanna go? You want me to put, I can put one together, we'll bring it to you.
City manager's office open?
Okay.
Brian, is your office open? Oh, Mary Ann's got a key?
Man.
She's a big wheel. Is consideration and possible action on matters discussed in executive session for the purpose of interviewing or naming a specific individual to serve as interim city manager. Discuss, okay? Anything you want to talk about?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we employ Justin Erickson as interim city manager, contract and salary to be determined and worked out by the next city commission meeting.
I second. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ladies first. Okay.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion in this matter? Okay, not being any further discussion, then let's vote. Motion carries. Before I adjourn, I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm sorry I messed up your another Monday night, but thank you. Oh, you got something?
Well, we want to, on these, Lisa talked about this qualification and so forth, we need everybody to get busy
You gotta
on
get on
those.
them. Yeah, like we talked about, if you want to give it to me,
Mary Ann or whoever.
Mary- actually, maybe we ought to give it to Carrie.
Well, Tammy's probably the one that.
Okay, we'll give it to
We'll work
Tammy.
with.
Okay, so when you get it, go through it, scratch it, pencil out what you want to do, anything you do, okay? And then let's get it down here to Tammy, and she'll compile it, and we'll
Look at it.
end up talking about it and going through it.
Is that gonna be, does that need to be an agenda item to finalize that, or what, Marion?
To see how
I
it
think-
shakes out. You
Okay,
know,
well, we got a lot of time,
yeah, when you really need it is when you start with your consulting firm.
right, so we,
Because, so they'll know what you're looking for, so you've
Sure.
got time to work on
Okay.
that,
All right.
instead of trying to cram it into the next week
Okay.
over the holidays.
okay.
Okay. Okay,
Thank
any
you.
other? Thanks. If not, then
Well-
I'll take, huh?
I was just gonna say, we made it, got done in record time. We have time to go home and watch NCIS.
We are adjourned.